I'm Reverend Tom Gerstenlauer. I serve as the senior pastor here at South Congregational United Church of Christ. In June of 2017, along with several other Springfield faith communities, we at South Congregational United Church of Christ offered a declaration of sanctuary for immigrant neighbors in our community who feared detention, separation from family, and even deportation from the place in which they have made their homes. Accommodations have been prepared, and we have now received a request for such shelter. We have welcomed Gisela and her 2 young children as our guests in the church. We will make every effort to provide hospitality to this family. They may remain for as long as is needed in order to obtain relief from threats to their family, their home, and their civil rights. Our faith calls upon us to love our neighbor and welcome the stranger among us. Our sense of vigilance is heightened during this most holy week on the Christian calendar. We must and we will persist in faith. And now I want to welcome and surrender the pulpit to my friend, Reverend Jason Seymour.
Good morning. Reverend Jason Seymour. I serve the Unitarian Universalist Society of Greater Springfield in Forest Park. Won't you please settle your hearts in this moment and join me in a spirit of prayer. God of all nations, whose love transcends them all, we pray this day for Gisela and for her family. We pray for their comfort and for their safety. We pray that we may be good hosts to them, that we who surround them may be strengthened in our task and humbled in how we do it together. We ask a special blessing on South Church and on all those who have been called this day into action and solidarity. Grant that our witness may provide a sacred protection and a holy disturbance. Keep us forever faithful on the path, forever grounded in good news, forever loving the hell out of the world wherever we find it, and making manifest heaven on earth for one and all. To that end, we pray that justice be done. And since that word is used many ways to serve many interests, let us be clear. We pray for the justice that treats every person with dignity and respect, no matter where they are from. We pray for the justice that exposes unearned privilege, the justice through which and by which unearned suffering becomes redemptive, the justice that keeps us mindful of our vulnerability and the ways we need one another. For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. We pray for the justice that confronts unjust legalisms, subjecting them to a higher test. The justice that holds leaders accountable to the people they serve, to all the people they serve. The justice that gathers diverse souls together, each one invested, each one protecting and crying out for the dignity of the others. Proclaiming a moral force with the power to change hearts and habits, personal and societal. We pray for the justice that is what love looks like in public. May we be instruments of such a vision, of such an abiding ethic of love and justice that each may help to make actual. This is the beloved community. This is a sanctuary. May the sign out front forever read, welcome.
Amen.
May it be so, and amen.
Thank you.
Yeah, a little bit.
We're done.
I think that's it.
A couple of questions, please.
Sure, please.
Reverend, as far as can you provide the identity of this family?
They have been identified elsewhere, and we're relying on Tara's leadership to guide us in that communication. So I'll relinquish the pulpit to Tara if she'd like to speak.
I'm not going to Facebook Live myself.
Can you
Sure, I can do there.
Please.
Yeah, you can do it.
Coming to the podium is Tara Parrish. She runs the Pioneer Valley Project here in Springfield.
Okay, so at this point, we have invited a mother and 2 children into sanctuary. The mother, Gisela, we're not using her last name as of yet. She is the person who is seeking adjustment of status, and her 2 children are actually American citizens.
Can you talk about how old are they? They're young, I know.
They're young, they're school age, they're 10 and 4.
When you talk about sanctuary, you're talking about sleeping here, feeding here, clothing here, showering here. How long can that be reasonably sustained?
So our coalition, in partnership with South Congregational, worked very hard to ensure that we would have adequate facilities to house someone, and South stepped up as a congregation that had such facilities. And so you're exactly right. It does mean sleeping, eating, laundry, everything, all basic needs being met within the confines of this property.
So is she facing deportation? Like what kinds of, how is she threatened?
So Gisela was to actually leave the country tomorrow. She had a ticket that she was required to purchase by ICE, and so that date for that ticket was tomorrow. She has an ankle bracelet that was put on at her last ICE check-in, and so she's wearing that, and but she will remain here. She's married to an American citizen, so there is a path for her to be adjusted. She's been here for 17 years.
You had mentioned that she wants to become a legal American citizen. Can you be a little more specific about some of the hurdles that she's faced in that path? I know you mentioned attorney errors.
Yeah, so she has sought legal support from multiple attorneys since she began attempting to adjust her status in 2006, after being married in 2005. And for a variety of reasons, there were some decisions that were made that didn't lend themselves to clearing that path to adjustment. And so she's confident in the legal representation that she has now, and so that legal representative is pursuing adjustment of status right now as we speak.
Are they from Springfield or somewhere else?
The family is from Springfield.
And is the husband also part of the sanctuary, or he will not be?
At this time, he is not in sanctuary. Of course, they will be, in contact, and he is welcome as a visitor anytime. This is a really complicated and difficult choice for any family to make, because it essentially requires that Gisela, not her children, but Gisela remain within the confines of the church at all times.
So will the children be able to come and go then?
The children will remain in school, the children will remain in their regular activities, and will be able to come and go as American citizens.
But they'll live here.
Why were they living here if they're American citizens?
Well, namely because they're young children and they don't want to be away from their mom. And so that's the primary reason that the family decided that this was the best arrangement for right now.
Do you know who her legal representation is?
There is an attorney in Springfield. I'm not going to talk about names right now.
How long do you anticipate that she might have to stay here until her legal status is resolved?
It's really hard to say. If you look at sanctuary across the country, some folks have been out in the matter of 8 weeks, 10 weeks, and up in Amherst, Lucio has remained in sanctuary for now 5 months, and there's a woman with 1 child who's in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and she's been in for almost a year.
Because everybody's status is...
Everybody's case is very unique, so it just depends on a lot of different factors.
Since you mentioned Lucio's case, is there any effort to get political support behind
Gisela as there has been with Lucio's case? I mean, he's met with Senator Markey, Senator Warren.
Yep. So absolutely, we'll be seeking conversation with local and state and federal officials to support with this case as well.
What is the end game to all of this? I mean, is it for her to be a legal citizen and eventually leave the church? Is it to negotiate with ICE on some type of agreement in the meantime? What is the end game?
So she will not leave the church until she knows that she's safe from being detained by ICE. So, so yes to a negotiation with ICE, but also not leaving the church until she knows that she will not be detained as soon as she walks out of the building.
If you're not leaving the church, I'd imagine that's going to take a toll on you in some respects. Would there be mental health counseling available to her if she needs that?
Our coalition has formed teams, so they have taken on different pieces of responsibility related to ensuring care for the whole family and their needs. And so mental health needs, medical needs, we've planned for that. And so as needed, Gisela will tell us. This is a partnership, so we are really following her leadership. She's the one who is sacrificing the most in this moment, and so we're really following her leadership to learn from her, you know, what she needs so that we can respond.
And you said that each case is different, and I think in this case what the question is about the fact that she is married to a U.S. citizen and has been here and planted roots and has children. And I think that's the question many of our viewers are going to have. Can you talk about why, you know, in this case that's not protecting her?
Well, I can only go back to what the attorneys did earlier, because the attorney that she has now looked at her case closely. That's part of our process, is having someone sort of outside of the person's case look at the case to see if there is indeed a potential path to adjustment. And she pulled out several issues that she saw. And so as of right now, Gisela is no longer being represented by the person, she was the attorney who was representing her prior to now, and is now being represented by another attorney.
And then can you talk about a little bit about the roots, like what she's done since she's moved here to Massachusetts? You said she's been here 17 years.
She's been here 17 years. She started doing agricultural work when she arrived here. She's also worked in factories. She does have a work permit, because on her path to adjusting her status and being married to an American citizen, that's one of the initial sort of processes to adjusting status. And so she has been working here, paying taxes, and was employed until last week when she needed to make a decision about what her next step would be. So she's been employed, been a tax-paying resident here, has had no interactions with local law enforcement. She's a law-abiding resident of Springfield.
What would you say to people on the other side of this issue who may say, this is an example of a church getting involved in politics?
Well, maybe I should pass that one over to Reverend Gerstenlauer, because he's... Where did he go?
He's right over here.
Okay, there you are. Oh yeah, you're on the camera. I'll switch with you, and you can attend to that.
As I said in my prepared statement, this is not about politics. This is about a faith statement. We are compelled to act according to our faith. If we don't, then it's hard for us to claim it. So our action is, in a sense, a reaction to political actions that are ongoing. And also, I would say, to no small amount of confusion about just what is appropriate treatment of the stranger amongst us in the larger setting. We're not confused about it. We know exactly what our core values are. We view this as not only a compelling call for us to act, but also an opportunity for us to act, to exercise our faith in the larger community. So we don't see this as being a matter of politics by any sense of the term, but rather strictly of our faith that compels us to act in love and to be welcoming of the strangers among us, the neighbors who, in this particular case, by definitions that are indeed outside of our faith statements, our values, being oppressed, being manipulated, being compelled to take actions that no one of us, I think, not speaking for you all, but no one of us would call upon ourselves to leave our homes, to have to leave our families, to have to leave the place and the country that we've come to love well enough to make home in.
Are they here now or coming?
They're here now.
I understand that she'll be confined to the church. Is there any outdoor space somewhere that Gisela will be able to get fresh air?
That's, you know, it's difficult to say. We may be testing some of those limits. When the statement was made in June of last year, there were some immediate statements that were, at least in part, intended to contain, if not actually threaten, our ability to exercise our faith. So I guess we'll see.
You're talking about the statements that were made from City Hall?
That would be the origin of some of them, yes.
Have you had any reaction? I mean, has anybody talked to anybody at City Hall about this decision?
Last June.
Okay. Since last June, though, nothing.
Well, we haven't been called to engage. I'm sorry?
There's been no notification or communication between you and the mayor's office.
Nothing official, no.
Was there did you discuss this with the church membership?
Absolutely.
And what was their reaction?
Well, it was mixed at first, but it's unified now. What I feel confident that I speak for the congregation itself, Congregational United Church of Christ.
One of you had said earlier that you received these requests for sanctuary. If there's someone else out there who's trying to seek sanctuary, how do they go about putting in that request, and how quickly can you respond?
You know, that's going to vary from individual to individual as well. We make a public statement, so you're helping us. You're an ally in publicizing our position and what we've said, what we stand for, what we value. Beyond that, there's also word of mouth, and we recognize that the word of mouth, the street conversation is pretty vigorous in the city of Springfield. And so we're actually quite happy to be a part of that as well.
If you could just take me through that process, though, do you have churches lined up throughout Western Massachusetts that have said, in the event that you need a place to house someone for sanctuary, we're available?
I think you're probably aware Tara referred to a sister church of ours in Amherst that is providing sanctuary now. There are others that are anticipating making a statement. I will not speak for them, but we are aware that there are other churches in a position to offer sanctuary that are approaching a decision point.
These have both, so far, the two that have been publicized the most, have been congregational churches. Can you speak to the specific Congregationalist views and faiths that may, provide a little bit more of an open door policy than other churches?
Well, and I'm not sure that in fact, I could say with some confidence that it is not limited to Congregational United Church of Christ churches. In fact, my friend Jason made a statement in his prayer that embraces the same source of values that we do. Old Testament language that says we will provide hospitality to the stranger and we will love one another. So it's not limited or distinctive as far as the UCC is concerned, the United Church of Christ or the Congregational Church. It's rooted in, for us, biblical values, but I know that it extends well beyond that. There are many streams of ancient wisdom that speak to these very same things. And I believe that if you search closely enough, you'll find that it extends beyond just the church world into the secular world, perhaps even to yourself.
I think my questions are probably going to be for you. They're just, thank you. So she's been, you may have already covered this, but just to be clear, because a lot of the comments we're getting, so she's been here for 17 years and she's now wearing an ankle bracelet. Other than ICE coming to her, is there any sort of crime that she has committed or any other reason why she's wearing an ankle bracelet?
No, the act of being undocumented in this country is an administrative violation. It's actually not a criminal violation. And so the decision to put an ankle bracelet on also reflects that ICE's intent was to keep track of this individual, and at some level had some sense that they needed to keep track of this individual, but that's not an indication because of any crime that's been committed.
And then over 17 years, why would someone maybe have difficulty getting citizenship?
Well, not being an immigration attorney, that would be a tough one for me to answer. And again, all cases are different. So one might imagine that the path would be simple, but it's never a simple path. And I think given the political reality right now, there's especially there are obstacles that have presented themselves that may not have at another time.
When do you know, by any chance, when she started working on the pathway to citizenship? Was it right when she came to the country? Was it after the work permit?
So she began working on adjustment of status in 2006 after being married. So she's been working on it for 11, 12 years now.
Can I say something real quick? So just to, you asked about the end game before, and I think one of the things we just have to remember is the stake for this family. You mentioned that it's an administrative process, it's an administrative offense, that this is about paperwork. And the question of, is it reasonable to remove a mother from her children because of paperwork? I think that's a provocative question for us to answer and to wrestle with. And to the people who I know have differing views on this, I would say familiarize yourself with the case, with the human that is at the center of this, because this issue so easily becomes dehumanized that when you actually listen to the people who are at the center of these things, and you say, what does it mean to be a parent, to try to bring children into this world? I mean, we're seeing that on a variety of different issues right now of how we protect families and things like that. And so, the end game, I think, here is human dignity and a healthy family, and trying to protect this family from the forces that are not supportive of that right now. So.